It's another one. It's be called Because I Love You by Max Lucado. There's a picture there. Oh my gosh. Two kids. Long ago, in a land unlike you've ever seen, lived a wise man named Shaddai. Shaddai was a large man with a tender heart. He had bright blue eyes and a long, thick beard. When he laughed, his cheeks would lift until his eyes became half moons of joy. When he sang, everything stopped to listen. Tall trees would bend over, squirrels and butterflies and birds would stop. Even the children would turn when they heard his voice, and well they should. It was for them that he sang. And for the children, Shaddai had built a wonderful village. It was more than any child could dream. The children plunged into the sky blue pond. They squealed as they soared high on the swings hung from the apple branches. They scampered through the meadows and giggled in the orchards. Look, there they are, swinging from those trees, hey, and into the water. When Shadow wasn't in the meadow with the children or in the orchards with the children, he was in the workshop with the children. They loved to be with him while he worked. They loved to smell the sawdust, hear him sing, and watch him carve a tree out of a log or make a table, watch him carve a chair out of a log or make a table out of a tree. Every night he would gather the children onto the grassy meadow and tell them stories. Fascinated, the children would listen as long as Shaddai or their weary eyes allowed. The children loved Shaddai, and Shaddai loved the children. He knew each one by name, and he knew everything about them. He knew Lucy loved birds. He knew Roland was afraid of the dark. He knew Paladin was curious. When one of them called his name, he dropped whatever he was doing and turned. His giant heart had 100 strings, each held by a different child, and Shaddai loved each one the same. That's why he built the wall. Look, see, there he is telling stories to the kids. How cool. Shaddai had built a high stone fence around the village. The wall was so tall it stood high above him. He spent days building it, and as he built, he did not sing. A deadly forest stood outside the village. As Shaddai built the fence, he would often pause and look into the shadows beyond. Cruel thorns and wild beasts and hidden pits filled the dark forest. It was no place for the children Shaddai loved. Beyond the wall is danger, he would tell the children. You were made for my village, not for the terrible land beyond. Stay with me. It's safe here. See, he's building that wall. Stay with me. It's safe here, he said. But in his heart, he knew it was only a matter of time. The day he placed the last stone on the wall, he returned to his shop, took a long tree branch, and sat down at his bench and carved a staff or a walking stick. I'll be ready, he told himself. Sometime later, a boy ran into Shaddai's workshop. The sandy-haired child brought the maker both joy and worry. Shaddai! The maker dropped his hammer and turned. What is it, Paladin? The boy spoke in spurts as he gasped for air. The wall! I found a hole! The boy's hand stretched to show the size. Someone could crawl through it. Look, see, he's found that hole in the wall. Shaddai sat down. I knew it would be you, Paladin. Tell me, how did you find it? I was walking along the wall searching for holes, said Shaddai. Paladin paused, surprised that Shaddai knew. Yes, I was looking for holes, so you could see out into the forest. I was curious, Shaddai. Why is it so bad? The maker cupped the small face in his hands and lifted it so the boy would look right into his eyes. Paladin's stomach felt uneasy. Look, there's the tools, and there is Shaddai looking directly into Paladin's face, and Paladin's looking at him too. Paladin, listen to me. A journey into the forest will hurt you. You were not made for those lands. If you leave here, you will not find the way back. Paladin spoke softly. You will fix the hole then? No, Paladin. I created the hole because I love you so much. But if you don't fix it, said Paladin, the children might leave. I know, Paladin, but I want the children to stay because they want to, not because they have to. Look, see, he's talking there. Trying to help him understand, isn't he? It's good to do the right thing because you want to, not because you haven't got any choice. Paladin didn't understand. Uncomfortable, he turned to leave. He needed to think about what Shaddai had said. Part of him wanted the safety of Shaddai's shop, while another part drew him toward the fence. He looked into the shop. There sat Shaddai, still watching. Paladin turned and walked away as fast as he could. Before he knew it, he was going to the fence. I won't get too near, he said to himself. I'll just peek out. Questions came as quickly as his steps. Why am I so curious? Is it wrong to want to see beyond the fence? Look, see, there he's leaving Shaddai and he's looking back. There he is looking at the hole. See? He's got back to the hole and he's looking through it. By now, Paladin was at the hole. Without stopping to think, he lay on his stomach and wiggled through just far enough to stick his head out onto the other side. I'll just take a quick look, he thought. What would be wrong with that? Soon he was through the hole and on the other side of the wall. He rose slowly to his feet. It's not so bad. It's nice out here. What was Shaddai worried about? Paladin began walking in the forest. See, that's him walking along in the forest. Twigs snapped beneath his bare feet. Sweet flowers scented the air. I don't see any scary creatures, he thought. The trees were so thick he could barely see any sky. Just a few steps into the wood, he said aloud, to see what it's like. After a dozen more steps, he stopped. He liked the wilderness. There's nothing to fear here. For the first time in his young life, he believed that Shaddai was wrong. Just wait until I tell the others. And he turned to go back through the hole. But the hole was gone. He stopped and stared. He saw only a solid wall. Paladin ran to the wall. Was this the spot he'd crawled through? He couldn't remember. He ran a dozen steps one way and then a dozen steps the other way, but he couldn't find the hole. Suddenly he heard a strange sound in the woods behind him. He swung around, but he saw nothing. Paladin looked into the forest. It no longer seemed friendly. It was dark and scary, as if it wanted to destroy him. Desperately, Paladin searched the wall. He couldn't climb over. He couldn't break through. There was no way home. If you leave here, you will not find the way back. Shaddai's words rang in his mind. The boy's eyes were wide with fear. He sat on the ground and hugged his knees to his chest and began to cry. Look. Oh gosh, he's crying. Look, see? Because he can't get back. As Paladin huddled there, lonely and afraid, he remembered something else Shaddai had often said. I love you so much. Does he love me enough to come and find me? Wondered the boy. Will he hear me if I call to him? Shaddai! Shaddai! I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to you. Please come and help me. Paladin's cry had been heard by the one who loved him even before it was spoken. For as the boy left Shaddai's workshop, the Maker had watched him as long as he could. When Paladin was out of sight, Shaddai turned, not to take up his work, but to take off his apron. He hung his tools on the wall, then he reached into the corner and took the staff, the one he'd carved after he finished the wall. Even before Paladin had reached the wall, Shaddai had left the shop. Even before Paladin had asked for help, Shaddai was on his way to give it. Even before the hole in the wall had closed, Shaddai had opened another. His strong hands pulled away the rocks until he could see into the forest. With his staff at his side, Shaddai crawled through the hole. He left the village that he made and set out in search of his child. Look, he found him and he's hugging him. Do you know what? Shaddai is another name for God. And it means because God loves us, he wants us to stay safe in his kingdom. But even if we don't, all we've got to do is call out to him and he's going to come and get us. He'll find us. That's cool, hey?